Today was a normal day. The air was cold, work went by quickly, I had a cup of hot coffee in my hands, and I was itching to play another game when I got back home. At this point in the evening, I was shuffling around in a zombie-like state of being. I looked up to the gray clouds, the sky outlined with the spindly, leafless trees and red brick apartment complexes. I could see my breath in the air as a white puff of fog. It was much colder than I expected, but at least I had my coat. I walked over to an apartment and went right up the concrete steps. The door handle was cool to the touch, as I'd expect, and the inside wasn't so different. I assume the heater hasn't kicked on yet. After ascending the steps, I noticed something strange on my floor. A wall next to my door looked, well, weird, to say the least. I stood still, noticing that it changed more rapidly whenever I moved. The sight reminded me of two walls clipping inside of each other in a video game, and how they would change when you move because the polygons were all glitching over each other. I took a sip of my coffee, and instead of going to my apartment door, I walked up to the wall slowly, extending my hand to see what would happen. I expected it to be a normal paint over brick feeling, but I didn't feel anything. My hand passed right through it. I retracted it and looked down at it. It's perfectly fine. I definitely remember there being something there. Some sort of sensation. It's like the wall wasn't there. I looked up to the wall again, excitement welling up. This must be a dream, I thought to myself, and walked right into it. I passed right through it, but not to any normal room in the apartment, or anything that looked remotely like it. It was a room with corridors that vaguely resembled an office space. Mono yellow wallpaper, buzzing fluorescent lights, an old moist-looking carpet, and no furniture. I had no idea where I was, but curiosity compelled me forward into the eerie, empty rooms. I mean, it's not like it matters if I go back or keep going. It is a dream after all. Right? It seems like the rooms keep repeating, but I know I'm not in the same location as before. Every place in my field of view was covered in the same nasty carpet and bland yellow wallpaper, but I knew it was different somehow. I began to ponder where I've seen this maze-like place before. Obviously, if I'm having a dream about it, it probably appeared on my social media or my games at some point or another. That seems like a logical explanation. I must have seen it recently, so why am I having a hard time thinking about it? I dragged my hand across the walls. The sensation of paper on drywall felt so real. Almost a little too real. I stared ahead at the halls before me, thinking as hard as I could to try and find this place in my memory. Some shred of it would be nice. Some way to prove this really is a dream. It must be, though. How would I explain the unclipped wall? No, nobody can explain it. It's impossible. I slid my hand off the wall and back to my side as I looked back and forth between the several rooms I came from to the several possible rooms ahead of me. No, I've never seen this place before. I frantically looked back and forth, trying to find some semblance of a dreamy blur, or maybe imagine something to pop up before me. Another cup of coffee, the neighbor from across the hall, maybe a piece of paper. But nothing happened. I looked down at my free hand and pinched the back of it as hard as I could. Well, that was probably too hard. That's the least of my concern. I faced the horrifying, impossible realization. This isn't a dream. I ran back to where I came from. Everything looked different somehow, like it was a whole new layout. How is this possible? Where am I? I was in a totally different place, although I could swear I knew where I was going. Startled, I ran back, but it changed again. What's happening? How is everything changing so fast? I crashed against the wall, setting down my half-empty coffee on the ground and curling up into my legs. I just sat there, crying for hours, until I began to black out. Instead of fighting it, I welcomed the darkness. Reality returned to me from my dreamless sleep. The environment was at room temperature, and I was surrounded by something soft and warm. I shuffled, trying to remember how I got home. Did I pass out? I opened my eyes to see the blurry image of a dull yellow hue. Was it all just a surreal dream? These thoughts were interrupted as I slowly focused on the strange image. That I wasn't home. The maddening yellow wallpaper, the gross brown office carpets, the bright buzzing lights. They were all a reminder that I had no idea where I am. I was wrapped up in my coat, which I guess I thought was my bed. I sighed. I'm still here. This is real. I blinked and rubbed my eyes. Rolling my head to the side, I saw the coffee cup. It's probably gonna go bad soon, so I took a sip to ward off a soon-to-be caffeine headache. What am I gonna do? I said to myself, staring at the wall ahead of me. Well, sitting here won't get anything done. I groaned and stood up. I'm too tired to be scared anymore. I decided to just walk. I'm not going anywhere in particular, but I wanted to be somewhere else. Hopefully that would help me figure out the scale of this place. When I was wandering yesterday, it seemed so large and everything seemed to change when I stopped looking at it. I feel like I'm not in real life anymore. Like I'm in some randomly generated maze. I've seen that before in my games, but the engines that backed them rarely ever supported something this, well, chaotic? I have no idea how to describe this. I decided it's best to ignore it, since I probably can't match this with in-game logic, even if I wanted to. Just looking forward and going straight. Or rather straight as possible. The twists and turns all blurred together in my mind over time. Minutes turned to hours, and soon I'd venture to say days. I'm a little hungry, but I have nothing to eat. And I don't know what the expiration date is on my only source of calories. But if I had to guess, I had a day or two. My best bet of finding out where I am, finding out some help, getting out of here, literally anything, was based on moving forward. There was probably no set destination, but there's bound to be a landmark or some sort of irregularity in these rooms. If I can no-clip through a wall, like earlier, maybe I could find another unclipped wall. Eventually, I just found the thing to help me. Another wall of messed up polygons stood before me. The sight bringing me a tired form of joy. I blinked and mindlessly walked into it, hoping I would be back in my apartment complex in a world that was broken in a different way. When I walked through, I wasn't met with any reality I'm familiar with, but at least I wasn't blinded by yellow and hearing the deafening white noise of buzzing anymore.